The university was founded 50 years ago to embody the arts and sciences. And in the best traditions of university education, to prepare leaders to shape the renewal of societies. It has grown since its founding to include exemplary professional schools and colleges, but its core reflect the arts and the sciences. It is fitting, therefore, that at this 50th anniversary, efforts should have been made to find someone who represents the spirit of that founding and one who can capture the values and promise of the future. This person is Dr. Federico Mayor Zaragoza of Spain, a scientist, a biochemist, a poet, a scholar, a diplomat, a politician, and a fierce advocate for civil society and democracy. As a scholar, he has over 170 articles, over 100 of those scientific papers. He has 18 books, of which The Crime of Silence, Tomorrow is Always Late, Economic and Management Dialogue, and Memory of the Future. Note, Memory of the Future are for our reading. He has 7 additional books of poetry in his name, and he belongs to innumerable scientific societies and academies. As a politician and statesman, he has served in many capacities, including serving as Minister of Education in Spain, advisor to the President of that country, and as a deputy of the European Parliament. He was intimately associated with the return of democracy to Spain after the many years of the painful dictatorship. He is also associated with the ending of the Cold War and the ending of apartheid in South Africa through his work in UNESCO. UNESCO, the acronym that Chancellor reminded us this morning for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, it was created after World War II to focus on a special role for the UN. While the other organs of the UN, quasi-judicial, legislative, executive arms, and certain other bodies such as the Economic and Social Council, were to deal with the short and medium-term challenges of the international system, UNESCO was looked at in the long-term goal of eliminating war through a focus of science, education, and culture. In 1987, he was elected Director General of UNESCO and served in that capacity for 12 years, during which he forcefully got the organization to return to its mission to help develop from the culture of war in which we live. And we must always remember that, the culture of war in which we live, to a culture of peace. Since war begins in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed. That's from the Constitution of UNESCO. It is under his leadership that UNESCO created and developed the Culture of Peace program, which has been centered around 4 themes: education for peace, human rights and democracy, the defense of cultural diversity and intercultural dialogue and exchange, and long-term fight against poverty and isolation. the UN General Assembly's 1998 declaration of the 2001-2011 International Decade for the Promotion of the Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World, and that body's subsequent declaration of a program of action on the culture of peace constitutes two of the major accomplishments of Dr. Mayor. He presently is chairman of the Foundation for a Culture of Peace, something he is instrumental in creating, honorary chairman of the Academy of Peace, and a leader of the view that there is no human problem that human creative capabilities cannot solve. The world in which we live with all its problems need that belief. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, I have the honor to present to you Dr. Federico Mayor Zaragoza.
Their Chancellor, their Provost, Deans, Professors, students of the different lines of knowledge and conceptual work, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me say in my words of gratitude at the beginning of this conversation with you that I am particularly thankful to Reyes Cole because she from the very beginning has been so persuasive, has been so friendly. She has been telling me so well about the University of Massachusetts, Boston, that was absolutely impossible to say her no. Therefore, I am really very, very happy to be here today with all of you. And also to Teresa Mortimer, because she's also a woman. She was kind enough to go yesterday to welcome me at the station. And, well, for all the reasons, I would like to emphasize these persons that have been particularly related with my presence today here. But I also must tell you that there was something that I like very much, because this means that there is somebody that says yes or no, what is very important after consultation. I was invited at the beginning, the 11th. But the 11th was the day in which, in the General Assembly of the United Nations, they were having, as we now have the honor of having this already in the agenda of the United Nations, and we have this every year in September, at the beginning of September. And then they changed the date. My God, I have say yes, that I am coming the 11th. At the beginning, they were suggesting me the 9th. That I said, no, must be the 11th. And then I now should request again the University of Massachusetts that please, could you come change again and to put this the 11th and not the 9th as I have requested? You know, was a little for me, because I do not like all these things, but what I can tell you is that immediately, this very, very tall man that you have here with his stature in all aspects, immediately he wrote saying, oh yes, we are delighted. We are going to the first date that we offered to you. Well, what I would like to tell you is that you have facilitated very much my presence today here, their rector, their chancellor, the provost. And I would like now to try to tell you something of the life of a man that now is starting to be a little old. But I remember that when I wrote one of my books, my father was already quite old, and I dedicated to him telling to my father that has demonstrated that age is a matter of spirit. It's not a matter of the body, it's a matter of here. And I hope that now that my body starts already to having quite a lot of years, I could be at least giving to you some of the memories and some of the things that I consider that are important. In a way that this has been already said in the presentation, I thank you very much for this presentation, dear Provost, is a word that is in a culture of war. And this is from the beginning of the history. Therefore, we must realize that from the very beginning, from the origin of times, it has been only absolute male power. Women has been always absent. Women has been always invisible in history. And when, from time to time, very infrequent, she appeared in the scenario of the power, she was acting in a mimetic way of the behavior of the males. Why? Because she had never seen any women in the decision-making, and the decision-making of the women have been, are still today, we have some very good examples, are sometimes more male style than women's style. And this is because of this, because they have been absolutely marginalized during all the history. Therefore, we have centuries and centuries in which the only thing that all the leaders have followed was si vis pacem para bellum. If you wish peace, you must prepare war, and finish. And this is what has happened. In the last century, at the beginning of the century, was a terrible war, the First World War. And at the end of this World War, there was a very good president in the United States, Woodrow Wilson, and he went from New York to Brest, and he arrived, and during the trip, he wrote a convention for permanent peace in the world. And he arrived and said, now it's finished, all these things. Because this war, if you have seen some of the photographies of the First World War, was a terrible war. Was a war of not of weapons or, no. The people were dying of pest, of cold, of hunger. This was a terrible war. And Woodrow Wilson said, no, this cannot happen anymore. And from now on, we will have this convention. We will create the Society of Nations. League of Nations was also called. And we will create, as always, with a society, we must have a permanent tribunal or a permanent court of justice. All was very well designed, but si vis pacem para bellum. Immediately, most of the generals of the United States told him, what you're talking about? You're talking about peace? No. What we must do in the United States, we must be the strongest country in the world. This is what really matters. No, but now we do not need this, because now Germany will not, we will, through the umbrella of the Society of Nations, they will not develop any kind of armament now. Now we can start having a new era. And the era is the negotiation, diplomacy. You know what happened immediately? Woodrow Wilson was put aside, and United States was not a member of the Society of Nations that they have created, because the Republicans said that this was not, that they did not agree at all with the solution of diplomacy and the League of Nations. And it is for this that you know what happened. Some years later was another war. Germany was already full of armament and was another war, and was a terrible war, a terrible war. So terrible that was Holocaust, was genocide, was extermination. Not only Germany and Italy, Japan also was terrible what they did. And therefore we had another example of this, if you wish peace, prepare war, is not true. If not true, if you wish peace, you must act every day, and we must prepare peace and not war. Because if we prepare war, then finally we are prepared when, or we are prepared not only to defend, we are prepared to invade, and we are prepared to provoke war. Well, you know also the result of this second period was, I think that humanity must recognize that Roosevelt did the best, wonderful design of a peaceful earth, a peaceful world. He made a fantastic design, because it was a design not only related with the territorial aspects, with the power aspects. He said, no, no, the first thing is to help the losers. And the Marshall Plan is really one example of giving the hand like this, and not once more raising the hand. And the creation of FAO, the organization, in order that people had not the lack of food. Because if we really consider that all the human beings are equal in dignity, if we really, because what happens is that is not true, but if we sincerely think that all of us, regardless our sex, our ideology, our religion, our color of the skin, if we really think that all human beings are equal in dignity, then all the problems disappear. And it is for this that he said, we must have the different aspects. But then what we need is guidance. We need to have some ethical references. And this means that when he said, we need, of course, to have one organization concerning with health and with work and with development and with children. The program of children is wonderful, UNICEF, etc., etc. And he said, and we must have one organization for education, science, culture, the intellectual branch of the United Nations. And I like to repeat this because I think that there are some points today for reflection that can say what we need is to repeat this now and to refound United Nations like they were and not like immediately they were transformed. Because the first phrase of the charter is the solution today, not the solution for 1945, it's the solution today. What says? Says, we the peoples. I insist in this very much because this is exactly what you can imagine. We the peoples, not we the winners, or we the states, or we the governments. No, we the peoples. It's every life who has value. And it's for this that the peoples must have in their hands the reins of their future and their common destiny. Nobody, no government, nothing. We the peoples is wonderful. And they say, we have resolved to save the succeeding generations from the scourge of war. It's today. What we must do today, we must have democracy with the peoples. but genuine democracy, real democracy, we the peoples. And what we must do? We must build peace instead of preparing war. We have resolved to save the succeeding generations from the horror of the war. This means that now we are going to build peace. And why we do this? Because our supreme commitment are the next generations. Exactly the opposite of what is happening today. Today we are preparing war. We are forgetting the next generations because we do not take any decision concerning, for example, the environment. And we are not having democracy at the worldwide level. On the contrary, we have accepted this stupid thing because we must say sometimes that there are things that are stupid. How they can ask today the humanity to be guided by groups G6, G7, G8? What is this? 196 countries guided by 6, 7, 8, 20. What is this? It's absurd. But they have given us this kind of absurdities. And particularly, the Western countries have accepted this, what has been really a disaster. Because this is exactly the opposite of what Roosevelt made in his design. He said, now we the peoples, we are going to change the world. And we are going because we will take care of health. We will develop the countries. All the countries in this, the countries will not have hunger anymore. Nobody will die of hunger. Today, every day, more than 50,000 persons, most of them children from 1 to 5 years of age, are dying of hunger. And for me, this is intolerable. I awake very early in the morning because of this, because I say, we must try, even if we became old, we must try to change this. We can not accept that people are dying and we are looking to another side. But at the same time, every day, we invest more than $3 billion in armament and military expenditures. You realize that Woodrow Wilson was right, and we realize that Roosevelt was right when he said, no, no, no. All these things now will be under the guidance and the approaches of this organization, the United Nations. And as he already was, as you know, very ill of leukemia, he tell his wife, Eleonora, you must take care that this guidance, these points of reference are given to all the citizens of the world. This was the Declaration of Human Rights. And I must tell you that it was precisely in the UNESCO's constitution where all these things were already put in order that must be afterwards developed. Because it is said in the constitution of UNESCO that the world must be guided by the democratic principles. Democracy. This means the peoples, we the peoples, democracy. And these democratic principles are very few, are four: justice, freedom, equality, and solidarity. And it is added intellectual and moral solidarity. Solidarity does not mean only help, means to share. Share is the key word, share. You must share knowledge. You must share experience. Now that we have the gift of living many years, when I was young, when I was 20 years old, in Spain, the average lifetime was 62 years. Now it's 82 years. And the Spanish women are the women that live more years. Yes, because they are very intelligent. It's very good that the women live more years than the men. But what I mean is that it has been all this terrible change. And at this moment, what we can share? When we talk about solidarity, we are not telling only to help, immediate help. No, we must share. Share is a key word. We must share because now we have our experience, we have our reflections, we have our life, all the history of our life. And we can, in this way, to provide, in this commitment with the next generations, we can provide more solutions. We can provide more examples of life. We can provide more reference in the firmament of every people. This is very important. I have been very happy because I have had the possibility of sharing experience with persons like President Nelson Mandela. You know, Nelson Mandela was a fantastic person. And I have two examples of Nelson Mandela that I would like to transmit to you today. One, relation with the next generations. He told me one day in my office in UNESCO, he said, the supreme commitment of each generation is to take care of the next generation. Please, now we must take this very seriously. And we must say, yes, now we know that the Arctic is melting, we know that the Antarctic is melting, we know that there is a climate change. Now we will not accept anymore any kind of explanations paid by multinationals. You know that the Academy of Science of the United States in the year 1979 already was warning, be careful because we are producing too much carbonic anhydride. And the reuptake by the ocean is also decreasing because we are washing our petrol tanks, the ships that transport. And therefore, we must now take care of all this. What we did? Immediately, there were some companies, among them ExxonMobil, that said, no, now we are going to pay pseudoscientists in order that they say the opposite. No problem, no problem. You can be careful. Because what matters is the business. What matters is to have more money. What matters is people. What matters is every single person. This is what matters. And from now on, we will not accept anymore this kind of lying, because I think that it has been very negative for the prospects for the future generations. And another day, I was in Pretoria with President Mandela. And we were talking about the culture of peace. And he said, look, culture of peace can start because people must realize that we have other ways of being all together and of having the administration of the Earth problems. But we need the cornerstone of humanity is the women. And we have had always male power. We have had always immediately the trend to utilize the muscle, to utilize the force, to utilize our strength. And he said, when we will have around 30% of women that will behave as women and will decide as women with the values that are inherent to their condition, at this moment, the things will change. In UNESCO, we made a very rapid study of what was at this moment the decision-making, the female decision-making, was below 5%. This means that in the year 1996, 95% of all the decisions were adopted by men. Today, the things have changed in a very rapid way. Today, we are already around 15, 16. But in perhaps 10 years, we can arrive already to 25. I mean, now, yes, now we have in the horizon, we see this cornerstone of women and men all together, starting a new era. This is what in the Earth Charter, I don't know if you have had the opportunity of reading the Earth Charter, but I advise you to do because it's one of the most beautiful, short, and in my view, guiding the humanity. And at the end they say, what we need is a new beginning. Well, for this new beginning, we must do all together with the women. And if we are all together, then it's feasible. Here in Boston was born a president called John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And for me and for the people of my age at this moment, he was something unbelievable. We were always following what he said because the world needs leaders. And we were talking this morning about this with your chancellor. I think that is very important. He is one. We need persons that can be immediately said, we must follow because there are some very important points of reference. There are stars in our night. We are normally in the night, not in the day. But in the night we can see the stars. And there are these stars that can be more brilliant than others. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 23rd of June of 1963. He said in Washington, I am told that peace is a dream. I will demonstrate that can be a reality. I am told that disarmament is not feasible. I will demonstrate that it is. And he added, because there is no any challenge beyond the human creative capacity. This is the solution. You can say, what a wonder in this phrase. There is no challenge that is placed beyond our creative capacity. And because every human being is unique and is able to create, is able to invent the future. Why we must accept this kind of present world if we can invent? Every single human being is able to create. And it is for this that with an enormous mediatic power, it's for this that they try, that we do not reflect, that we do not act according to our own reflections, that we are not free and responsible. The UNESCO's constitution that was written in this moment of enormous human tension tells precisely that education, to be educated, is to be free and responsible. And if we are free and responsible, if we are independent, if we listen, if we take into account many, many points of view, but at the end, we must act according to our reflection. And we must have time to reflect. The human beings are the only ones that can reflect, that can anticipate, that can imagine, that can innovate, that can invent, that can create. This is fantastic. This is our hope. Every single human being can create. Then we can change. We can invent our future. We can say, we do not like the present world. We are going to have another one. And it is for this that I have written this book that the Provost had mentioned, Memory of the Future. Because the past has already been written. The past has been as it has been. And we must take all the lessons of the past. But at the same time, we must realize that what really matters is the future. And the future must be written. We can write a different future because we can decide to act in a different manner. And for this we must have time. We must have every day a little time to think. I remember as a professor of molecular biology, one day I was in Oxford in the laboratory of Professor Krebs, and was already one Friday, was late, and he went to something that he has lost to his office, and he saw that in my lab there were the lights, and he came and said, "What are you doing, working one Friday so late?" And I said, "Professor Krebs, in my lab in Granada I have not all these apparatus, and I'm taking advantage here." And he said, "From now on, you Friday will also be at home." And then I said, "Friday, Saturday, and Sunday without working?" He said, yes, because I think that you are good. And I said, "Well, precisely then give me the opportunity." And he said, "Research is to see what others can see and to think what nobody has thought." You realize how important it is to think and to have time to think and to see the things in such a way, because we are seeing what everybody can see, but we must think what nobody has thought. And this is to create, and this is to discover, and this is the way that we must follow. Therefore, dear friends, here in Boston, we can be, I am sure, very illuminated in our ways for the future by this excellent phrase, excellent statement of President Kennedy. President Kennedy was killed only 4 months after saying this, but perhaps because of this. But really what is very important is to realize that every single human being is equal in dignity. Every single human being is able to create. And it is for this that we should come to a new era. But this was not feasible, because at the end of the Second World War, when Roosevelt made this fantastic design and said, "We are a democracy with the peoples, and now we will have this wonderful human rights declaration." The Human Rights Declaration, in his first paragraph of the preamble, already says, these human rights are to save or to free humanity from fear. You know, because they realize that we are silent, invisible, anonymous, and fearful. Fearful. We have been being born, living, and dying in 50 square kilometers. We do not know nothing what is happening after these 50 kilometers around us. And it is for this that we were fearful, and we were invisible, and we were obedient. The second paragraph of the Human Rights Declaration says, and if you cannot exercise fully these human rights, then you are compelled to say to rebellion. Then you must say no. You must react and say no. I cannot accept. Look, not fear anymore, and we must say no. We must say enough is enough. And then, peacefully, but we must present a new beginning. This new beginning, this new paradigm, is precisely what a culture of peace represents. We have had always si vis pacem para bellum, if you wish peace, prepare war, and now we can say, for the first time in history, it's for this that I say the persons today, the students, the young people today especially, well, now You are lucky, because for the first time in history, you are not invisible. I wasn't able to say what I think. I wasn't able. We had no radio, we had nothing. Nothing. Main part of the world was precisely under dictatorship. But even those that were under so-called democracies, the humans of this country, the human beings, could not express themselves. And the women was completely aside. In the year 50s, the women was not in any of the, what we can say, professionally aspect of life. They were inexistent. And now, in very few years, we have, number one, the possibility of know the world as it is. Why? Because we have fantastic information, we have communication. We can know on real time what is happening here, what is happening there. And we can compare. To compare is very important ethically. Because sometimes we say, oh, the things are going very bad. But then we realize how are going for the people that has the same age that I have in the other part of the world. And you become, and also you consider, oh, we are, our society is the best. You know, I remember in my very important time in UNESCO, I remember that I always was looking for inspiration, and of course, there is no doubt India is a fantastic space of inspiration, because this you can see how they live. But there is one place that I advise you to visit when you really need wisdom. You must go to Africa. These African women, they have been, the African women, for me, the most important source of wisdom. And when I needed really to take a very difficult decision, you can consult the wisdom of these women that every day they must create what will happen during this day, from the dawn to the sunset. They have nothing. They must invent how to live this day for themselves and for their children and their families. It's fantastic. I always have said, and I said this in the Europarlament, I have said, the best business we can do in Europe today is to change know-how by wisdom with the African people, because they have suffered so much. They have been suffering so much. They have been, as you know, discriminated. It's terrible. Precisely yesterday, the 10th of September, was the 20th anniversary of the creation of a very important program in UNESCO called the Slave Road. Because we consider that we are always talking about other genocides, other Holocausts, but there is one Holocaust that was horrible. During many years, centuries. And today, we have a world in which we can be inspired. We can know all the world, not only one part of the world. We do not have this vision that we had even 30, 40 years ago. Oh, in our part, in our society, we know. Today we know all the world. Second, if we have this global consciousness, we have also something that is absolutely, in my view, the prime, the best solution. the most important one. We have global citizenship. We consider for the first time today that we are citizens of the world. Until now, we were citizens of a little village, then of the very big town. Now, we are citizens of the world. It has been the transition in very few years from the rural to the urban. Now, we are in the digital era. Yes, and we know, and we become citizens of the world. This is wonderful. And we have global consciousness, and we have women with us. These are the three conditions to change the world. We can express ourselves freely. We have the cyberspace. We can immediately talk with the others. This was not the case, I repeat, when I was young. This was not the case at all. The only thing that we knew about the Pope, for example, was a photography in black and white. They said, "Is the Pope?" And finish. And is in Rome. Rome was very far. We never, no, nothing. This was exactly what we, and now we can know what happens. We can have this global consciousness. We can compare. We have progressively more women in the decision making. Today we can change. Today, yes. Today we can say this dream of President Roosevelt now can be a reality. And we can have a refounded United Nations. And we can have a refounded United Nations also with the strength. If necessary, they must have. But it is not necessary that all the countries are buying again now all the weapons, because we know what happens. The business of armament is the first one at the worldwide level. We have what we can say the great domain. We have the military, we have the energy, we have the media, now we have the digital also, but of course the financial, but we must not forget that now all this becomes unnecessary because we can refound United Nations, being all together, not the men, the women as well. We can express all, we can be the peoples. This is very new to be the peoples, because until now, the peoples were inexistent. And, my dear friends, we can tell that I think that there is a wonderful statement made by Amin Malouf that says, unprecedented situations require unprecedented solutions. Now we must tell all the solutions that we had had until now out. Most of them are already the past. And now we need new kind of solutions for the future. And these solutions, now these unprecedented solutions, now we can invent the solutions. We can follow what President Kennedy said here. The future is to be made. The past is the past. We must not have inertia. There are so many persons and institutions that do not like change. Why? Because they privilege. They do not like. They have inertia. And I would like to conclude telling to you that this was around the year 99. I was already announced that I was not going to present myself to a third term in UNESCO and that I was leaving. And I was invited by the American Physical Association, and it was a very big meeting in Atlanta. And when presenting me to give the keyword speech, President Jensen, a professor that was Nobel laureate, said, I am going to present you a diapositive. I don't know, remember what. what was the name in English. And he presented and was only one, what is very strange. In the scientists we present too many, and we present with many things in each one. And was one, only with one word, was inertia. And he said, this is our enemy. Inertia is our enemy, because we do not like to evolve. The solution, and I can tell you this as a biochemist, the solution is evolution. We must evolve. And what means evolve? Evolve means to have always some intemporal things, some values that are forever, forever. Justice, social justice, freedom, to be free, responsibility. This always remains, but the rest must be changed. This is evolution, to keep some things and to change some others. Evolution. When evolution does not take place, revolution finally arrives. And I do not like revolution. I have seen so many revolutions. I have been in so many revolutions that I can tell you that always all are losers. There are too many victims. You sometimes, you can have what you have dreamed, but many people has died. Therefore, now we have the possibility of changing the world. It's very easy to come from one culture of muscle, strength, imposition, domination, violence, and war, to a culture of encounter. The first thing is to encounter, to be all together, of encounter, of conversation, of conciliation, of alliance, of peace. This transition we can summarize in 2 words, from force to word. Really, to be able to speak, to be able to talk, to be able to solve the problems in another way that not with the weapons. This is the culture of peace. And this culture of peace, some years ago, was more than other thing, a dream. Today, this starts to be the position in which many, many, many people in the world are already being for their own future. My dear friends, I thank you very much for giving me this possibility. Of course, I am always ready to provide you, if you so wish, with documents and with very, very interesting reports on this. But finally, what I came to tell you here is very easy. During centuries, only some males were in the will of humanity. Today we are all of us. Today we are with the peoples. And with the peoples today we can invent a different future. Thank you very much.
Thank Dr. Mayor, and let's give him an appreciative clap. Chancellor Motley will be coming to the rostrum.
Let's give Dr. Mayor another round of applause. If you only knew what he went through to be here with us today. He mentioned the fact that there was shifts in his schedule and trying to get here from New York and all that. But he's a wonderful example of leadership, persistence, and all kinds of bold things. And we're so grateful that you showed up today and you were able to deliver for us a wonderful message. We have a token of our appreciation from the university from us to you. I want you to display it somewhere in one of your offices somewhere in the world. And so Harry is trying, come on over here, Provost. We're going to turn around this way. We're going to take a picture with this guy right down here. And we want to say thank you. Yes, we can open.
At least like this.
Yes, at least like that, out of the bag. There you go. I'm one of those package rippers.
Unprecedented problems.
There you go. And we'll make sure we get it to wherever you want it to go.
Very difficult, eh? I must tell you that,
Here's what we'll do.
you see, he's able to open many things.
It is worth seeing. So, what this is a representation of us being out here on the waterfront. These are given to distinguished guests that we have here. And this ship represents a lot for us here on this university. So we're so grateful to you for coming up. And we hope you'll
Thank
display
you very
this
much.
in a wonderful place in your office. That's why we had it so packaged so tight, so the chancellor wouldn't drop it. Okay?
You know that I am particularly happy to have this because I am from Barcelona.
Yes.
Barcelona is a place very close to the seaside. And there is the sailors have a proverb that says, there is not good wine, never, for those that do not know where they wish to go. And I hope that with this, I will remember that there are ways to which I wish to go and to come again is this university.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you.